Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're tackling LeetCode problem number 43, multiply strings. This is a medium-level problem, and it's a great one for practicing your dynamic programming skills or even just brushing up on your elementary school multiplication. The problem asks us to multiply two non-negative integers represented as strings and return the product as a string. So we're not dealing with numerical input, we're dealing with strings like 123 and 456. This adds a layer of complexity, right? We can't just use the standard multiplication operator. We'll need to think about how we do multiplication manually and then translate that into code. We have to handle edge cases like leading zeros and empty strings, but don't worry, we'll break it down step by step, and by the end of this video, you'll be multiplying strings like a pro. Understanding with examples. Let's solidify our understanding with a couple of examples. Imagine we have the strings 12 and 3. How would you multiply them manually? You do 3 times 2, which is 6, and then 3 times 1, which is 3. You'd then combine those results to get 36, right? Now let's try something a bit more challenging, 123 multiplied by 45. We'd start with 5 times 123, then 40 times 123, and add the results. That's 615 plus 4920, giving us 5535. See how this works? We're essentially simulating the long multiplication method we learned in school. We'll break this process into smaller, manageable steps in our code. Let's move on to see how we can approach this programmatically. Brute force approach. A brute force approach would involve converting the input strings to integers, performing the multiplication, and then converting the result back to a string. This sounds simple, but it fails for very large numbers that exceed the integer limit of your programming language. For example, if the strings represent numbers larger than what a standard integer variable can hold, it will cause an overflow. Thus, we need a more sophisticated solution which is robust to handle very large numbers. This is where our understanding of the manual multiplication method comes in handy. We will use the manual multiplication as a guide to develop an algorithm that doesn't rely on built-in integer multiplication. Optimal solution. Our optimal solution will mimic the manual long multiplication process. We'll iterate through each digit of the second string, multiply it with each digit of the first string, and store the intermediate results. Then we'll carefully add these intermediate results, handling carries and aligning digits correctly to obtain the final product. This approach avoids the integer overflow problem and allows us to handle arbitrarily large numbers represented as strings. It might sound complex, but trust me, it will become crystal clear once we see the code. We'll use a clever combination of arrays and loops to handle the multiplication and addition steps. Code implementation. Let's see the code in Python. We'll start by initializing an array to store our intermediate results. Then we'll iterate through the digits of the second string, performing digit-by-digit multiplication with the first string. The key is to handle the carries carefully. We'll use a helper function to add two strings representing numbers. Then we'll align the results correctly, accounting for different lengths. Finally, we'll handle leading zeros. We'll carefully walk through each line of code, breaking down the logic step by step. Following along in your own IDE will help you understand the process even better. Time and space complexity. Now let's analyze the time and space complexity. The time complexity of our algorithm is O of n times m, where n is the length of the first string and m is the length of the second string. This is because we have nested loops iterating through the digits of both strings. The space complexity is also O of n plus m in the worst case, primarily due to the space used to store the intermediate results and the final product string. So it's a pretty efficient solution, especially considering we're handling large number multiplication without relying on built-in integer operations. Engagement break. Before we wrap things up, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did you find this explanation helpful? If you did, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me create more content like this. Also, feel free to leave any questions or suggestions in the comments below. I'll do my best to respond to everyone. Let's keep this learning community growing. And that's it. We've successfully tackled the LeetCode multiply strings problem. We've learned about different approaches, chosen an optimal solution, and implemented it in Python. This problem is a great example of how understanding fundamental arithmetic concepts and applying them creatively can solve seemingly complex coding challenges. Remember, this problem tests not just coding skills, but also your analytical